Vance hated crowds, especially ones where everyone was trying to impress each other with borrowed wealth and fake smiles. He adjusted the dark baseball cap pulled low over his face and stepped deeper into the party, hoping no one would recognize him. It was his college buddy's engagement celebration, held at a sprawling estate in the Hollywood Hills, and the guest list screamed influencer chaos. He had promised to show his face, but only for an hour, maybe less. He moved through the backyard, past a fountain lit up in blue, nodding politely when someone looked his way. No one seemed to notice him. Good, that's how he liked it. "Excuse me," a voice said behind him. "You're standing on my charger." He turned and looked down. His boot was planted right on top of a phone charger cable. He stepped back quickly. "My bad," he muttered, and then he saw her. She wasn't dressed like the others, no designer logos, no heavy makeup, no trying too hard energy. She was wearing a simple navy sundress with white sneakers, her dark blonde hair up in a messy twist like she didn't care if anyone noticed her. She looked up from her phone, her eyes locking with his. "Thanks. I've been looking for a spot to plug in for 10 minutes. Every outlet is being hoarded by someone live streaming their drink." He huffed a laugh before he could stop himself. "That sounds about right," she tilted her head. "You're not like the rest of them." "Is that a compliment?" "That depends." "Are you here trying to sell a protein powder or start a podcast?" He grinned, actually grinned. "Nope, just here for the free drinks and bad decisions." She smiled, and it hit him harder than it should have. "I'm Blaire," she said, holding out her hand. He took it, her skin warm and soft against his. "Kai," she narrowed her eyes. "You're not a Kai I've met before. Maybe I'm new, or maybe you're hiding." He blinked. "What makes you say that? You're wearing a hat at night. And you keep looking around like you're waiting to be attacked by paparazzi." He chuckled, a little too loudly. "That obvious?" She leaned against the wall and crossed her arms. "I'm not trying to expose you or anything. Whatever your reason is, it's fine." "I'm hiding too." "Yeah," he asked, intrigued. "From what?" "Life," she said with a shrug. "I work at a bakery in Silver Lake. My friend dragged me here because she thinks I need to experience luxury, whatever that means." He didn't know why her honesty hit him like a punch to the ribs. Maybe because it had been a long time since anyone had spoken to him without an agenda. "Do you want to experience luxury?" he asked, watching her closely. She laughed. "Not if it comes with a side of ego." Kai's jaw twitched. "Fair enough." They stood there for another moment, the buzz of the party fading behind them. "So what do you do, Kai?" she asked. He hesitated. "I manage investments." That wasn't a lie. It just didn't cover the whole truth that he owned one of the largest real estate development companies on the West Coast. That his net worth had passed the billion mark last year. That his face had graced more than one business magazine, which was exactly why he kept it hidden tonight. "Sounds grown up," she said. "Unfortunately, it is." She looked at him again, really looked at him. "You're not what I expected to find here." "Me either," he said, and he meant it. Her eyes sparkled. "Want to get out of here?" His brows lifted. "You don't even know me." "Exactly. And everyone else here thinks they know everyone else. You feel like a break from that." He didn't even hesitate. "Let's go." They snuck out through the side gate, past valet, and walked 2 blocks until they hit a quiet taco stand still open on the corner. They sat on the curb, eating carne asada and laughing about how ridiculous the party had been. "I can't believe I left an estate party for tacos," Blaire said, licking salsa off her thumb. "I can," Kai said, watching her. "This is the best part of my night." Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. "Do you do this often?" she asked. "Disappear from your world?" "No," he said honestly. "I don't." She looked down at her lap. "Me neither. I usually play it safe." "You don't seem safe," she laughed. "I'm not. Just careful." He wanted to ask more about her, about the shadows behind her smile, but she stood up and stretched. "I should probably head back. My friend's gonna think I got kidnapped." "Can I see you again?" he asked before she could leave. She looked surprised. "You want to?" "Yeah." "I do." She studied him for a second. "Okay, but next time you're not allowed to wear a hat." He grinned. "Deal." She scribbled her number on the napkin from her taco wrapper and handed it to him. "I'm trusting you to actually call," she said. He met her eyes. "I will." And this time he meant it. As she walked away, Kai stayed on the curb, holding the napkin like it was made of gold. He had come to the party to hide. But somehow, he'd just met the only person who made him want to be seen. Kai leaned against the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of his penthouse, watching the city below flicker in gold and crimson. He should have been reviewing the mergers his assistant had flagged, or calling back the VP of a holding firm in Dubai, but all he could think about was Blaire. She'd been different, unpolished in the best way. He couldn't stop replaying the way she'd tilted her head when she was curious, or how she didn't try to impress him like everyone else in his orbit. He glanced at the napkin on the granite island. Still folded, still stained with salsa. He hadn't thrown it away. Couldn't. He hadn't made a move like this in years, asking someone out without a background check, a prenup consultant, or a branding concern. It felt reckless and honest. By the time Friday rolled around, he'd arranged everything. He showed up at the bakery where she worked just before closing. The scent of cinnamon and melted butter drifted out the door, and he paused a few feet away, watching as she wiped down the counter with smooth, practiced movements. A streak of flour ran across her forearm. When she noticed him, her eyebrows lifted. "You really came," she said, stepping out from behind the counter. "Wasn't sure you were the follow-through type." Kai slid his hands into the pockets of his navy coat. "You told me not to wear a hat." "I figured the least I could do was show up properly." She gave him a once-over, then nodded. "I'll allow it. You done here? 5 minutes. My boss is in the back." "She's convinced I'm going to sneak out without restocking the fridge. Are you?" "Absolutely." He laughed quietly, and this time it sat differently. His laugh felt real. He hadn't realized how fake it had felt until right then. Blaire grabbed her jacket and met him outside. "So where are we going? I'm assuming you already have some mysterious plan." "I was thinking we walk, maybe grab a drink somewhere quiet," she blinked. "You don't want to Uber to some place with velvet ropes and bottle service?" He shook his head. "Not tonight." They walked side by side through the neighborhood, their steps in sync without effort. The streets were quieter than usual, the shops closing, the air cool and just shy of chilly. "So," she said after a few blocks. "Are you going to tell me the real reason you don't like parties?" He hesitated. "They make me feel like I'm being auctioned off." "That's dramatic. You're not a painting." "No, but sometimes it feels like people see me as one. Something expensive to collect and display." She looked at him, her brow furrowed. "You're not famous, are you?" "I'm not an actor, if that's what you mean." "But there's something else." He stopped walking and looked at her. "I run a development firm. We build, invest, acquire." "It's big." "How big?" "Global." She studied him for a moment, taking in the tailored coat, the quiet confidence, the way he didn't flaunt it but didn't hide it now either. "You don't lead with that, do you?" "No." "Why?" "Because I don't want it to be the only thing people see," she nodded slowly. "Fair." They ended up at a dimly lit rooftop bar tucked between 2 office buildings. No line, no crowd. Just string lights, a jazz guitarist in the corner, and a skyline that stretched for miles. "This place is beautiful," she said, setting her bag down on the table. "You like views?" "I like perspective." He ordered for them 2 old fashions with a twist. She raised an eyebrow when the drinks arrived. "You knew my drink?" "I guessed." "Lucky guess. I'm good at reading people." She sipped, then leaned forward. "Okay, Mr. Global Developer, what don't people know about you?" He thought for a moment. "I hate elevators. Can't stand the feeling of being trapped between floors." "Seriously?" "Dead serious." "Do you take the stairs?" "I own buildings. I take the penthouse key," she laughed. "Of course you do." "Your turn." She tapped her glass. "I talk to my oven," he blinked. "What, when I'm baking?" "I give it pep talks. Like, come on, don't burn this batch, I really need you to behave today." He stared at her, then broke into a grin. "That's the most charming thing I've ever heard," she shrugged. "Baking's personal, it deserves respect." He leaned back, watching her. "You're not what I expected." "Neither are you." They sat there for another hour, talking about everything but the obvious. She didn't press about his money. He didn't ask why she worked so many shifts. It was easy. Natural. When they stepped outside, the street was nearly empty. "I'll walk you to your car," he said. "I took the bus." He paused. "Let me drive you. You don't even know where I live." "I'm good with directions." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But if you murder me, I'm haunting the hell out of you." "That's fair." When he led her toward the curb, she stopped. "You drive a Jag?" "No." He hit the unlock button and the sleek black Bentley lit up. She blinked. "That's not subtle." "I didn't expect to need subtle tonight." She slid into the passenger seat, running her fingers over the leather. "This smells like wealth and secrets." He laughed as he entered. "I'll take that as a compliment." The drive was quiet until they turned onto her street, a modest row of apartments with cracked curbs and flower beds trying to survive the city. She unbuckled her seatbelt. "Thanks for all of this." He looked at her. "Can I see you again?" "Probably." "Probably? You're still a mystery." "I don't trust mysteries." "I'll earn it." She smiled, then leaned in and kissed his cheek. "Good night, Kai." He watched her walk up the steps and disappear inside. As he pulled away, he realized something terrifying. He didn't want Blaire to be a one-night escape. He wanted her to be the reason he stopped hiding. The next time Kai picked Blaire up, she was waiting outside her building with a canvas tote slung over her shoulder and her hair loosely braided to the side. She climbed into the Bentley without hesitation this time, her eyes scanning the dashboard like she was memorizing it. "You always this punctual?" she asked, buckling in. "I'm late if I'm not 5 minutes early," he replied, pulling into traffic. "Occupational hazard." She glanced over. "Do you ever turn it off?" "What?" "The CEO thing." He didn't answer right away. "I haven't figured out how." Blaire looked out the window. "That sounds exhausting." "It is." They drove in silence for a few blocks. She didn't press him, and he didn't try to fill the quiet with noise. When he veered off the main road into a residential area lined with sycamore trees and houses that whispered old money, she frowned. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." He pulled into a gated driveway. The gate opened automatically, revealing a 2-story craftsman home with warm wood siding and a wraparound porch framed by lanterns. The kind of house that felt lived in, not just owned. "This is one of my properties," he said as they stepped out. "It's not on the market yet." "I thought you'd like it." She followed him inside, her steps slow, deliberate. The interior was filled with natural textures and soft lighting. Exposed beams stretched across the ceiling, and the kitchen opened into a sunken living room with wide windows overlooking a private garden. It wasn't flashy, it was beautiful. "Why show me this?" she asked, her voice low. "Because I want to know what you see when you look at something like this, not an investor's opinion." "Yours." She walked through the space, running her fingers along the edge of a stone countertop, brushing past the long linen curtains. "There's a warmth here," she said finally. "It doesn't feel staged, it feels like someone loved it already." Kai leaned against the doorframe. "That's what I hoped you'd say." She turned to him. "You brought me here for feedback." "No, I brought you here because I wanted to spend time with you somewhere real. Somewhere that isn't a rooftop bar or a party full of people trying to prove something." She pressed her lips together, thinking. "What happens when you stop needing the escape?" He stepped closer. "I'm not escaping anymore." They stood there, the space between them charged but fragile. Blaire broke the tension first. "I want to show you something." "All right. Not now, tomorrow." "It's not impressive, but it matters to me." His gaze didn't waver. "I'll be there." The next afternoon, he found himself parked outside a community center in Echo Park. A chalk sign out front read, "Bake to Rise Youth Workshop today." He stepped inside, the scent of sugar and yeast thick in the air, and spotted her at the far end of the room, surrounded by a group of teenagers in aprons dusted with flour. She looked up, and a smile spread across her face. Not the kind she gave strangers, one that reached her eyes. He waited until her group finished before she walked over, brushing her hands on her jeans. "You stayed the whole 2 hours." "I said I would." She handed him a small box. "They made these for you. Almond croissants." Be honest or they'll track you down. They're about to be disappointed, he said, lifting the lid. I don't like almonds, her eyes widened. Seriously, he bit into one anyway, but I like effort. She shook her head, laughing. You're impossible. He looked around the room, the folding tables, the scratched tile floor, the handwritten signs. How did this start? My mom used to bring me here when I was little. I'd sit in that corner over there with a mixing bowl and pretend I was on a cooking show. When she passed, they let me keep coming. Eventually, I started helping, then teaching. He turned to her, something sharp catching in his chest. She would have been proud. Blaire's mouth twitched, but she didn't look away. I hope so. Outside, the sun had started to slip behind the skyline. He opened the passenger door for her and she slid in, tucking her legs up. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said softly. Why? Because this isn't your world, he started the car. It is now. They drove without music, the city rolling past like a moving painting. At a stoplight, she glanced over. What do you do when you're not working? He answered without thinking. I used to fill the space with noise, meetings, events, travel. Now I just try to figure out who I am when no one's watching. She didn't say anything at first. Then, that's harder than it sounds, he looked at her. Yeah, it is. When he pulled up to her apartment, she didn't move to get out right away. I don't date casually, she said quietly. I don't have space for people who disappear. I'm not going anywhere, she studied him. You say that like it's easy. Not easy, just true. She leaned over, her hand brushing his cheek before she kissed him soft, certain, nothing like the playful peck outside the bar. This one felt like a promise. When she pulled back, her voice was barely above a whisper. Okay. And with that, she stepped out and disappeared up the stairs. Kai sat there for a moment, his pulse still racing, his hands still on the wheel. He didn't realize until then that he'd stopped looking over his shoulder. For the first time in years, he wasn't hiding, he was beginning. Kai stood on the tarmac beside the jet, his hands in his coat pockets, watching the horizon shift from lavender to slate. The engines idled in the background, low and steady, but he wasn't leaving. Not yet. Inside his pocket, the small velvet box pressed against his fingers. He'd spent the past week organizing the permits for a community kitchen in Echo Park, partnering with the center Blaire volunteered at. The deal hadn't needed much negotiation, he'd simply written the check and told his legal team to make it happen. But the part he hadn't delegated was naming it. He called it the Sutton Space, Blaire's mother's last name. He hadn't told her yet. That part had to be done right. A car pulled up in the distance, headlights cutting through the fog. As it rolled to a stop, Blaire stepped out, wrapped in a long camel coat that hit just above her calves. She walked toward him slowly, her breath visible in the sharp morning air. You said it was important, she said, stopping in front of him. It is. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together as he guided her up the jet's steps. Inside, the cabin was warm, sleek, and quiet. But not sterile. He'd brought in fresh tulips, her favorite, he'd learned, and a small table was set with 2 cappuccinos and a tray of warm banana muffins from a bakery she'd once offhandedly mentioned. Her brows lifted. We're not flying anywhere. Nope. She took a seat and looked at him, puzzled. So, what are we doing here? Kai sat across from her, took a breath, and leaned forward. You remember that house I showed you, the one with the porch swing and the garden? That one, he said. I bought it, her eyes narrowed. Didn't you already own it? I mean, I bought it again, in your name, she blinked. What? It's not a gift, he said quickly. Not exactly. It's a foundation asset. You'll run it, the whole thing, the Sutton Space. A kitchen, a youth program, a bakery training center, however you want to structure it. You'll build it. Her lips parted, but no words came out. He reached into his coat and pulled out the box. I didn't plan this part, not the way I should have. But I know one thing for sure, I never want to go another day without you. She stared at the box in his hand, still closed. I don't want to disappear anymore. I don't want to hide behind titles or money or anything else, he said. I want to be seen. With you? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I know it's fast, he added, but I love you, I'm in love with you, and I want a life with you that's built on something real, not appearances, not expectations, just us. When he opened the box, the ring inside was simple. A single round diamond set in a thin gold band. No halo, no flourish, just timeless. I don't want to impress you, Blaire. I want to spend my life showing up for you. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the box, then stopped. I never thought you'd say something like that, she whispered. I never thought I'd feel something like this. She looked at him, her eyes shining. You really named it after her, he nodded. She gave the world someone who changed mine. Blaire let out a slow, shaky breath, then stood and walked around the table until she reached him. Without saying a word, she cupped his face in both hands and kissed him. It wasn't careful or tentative. It was certain. When she pulled back, her voice was thick. Yes. A weight he hadn't realized he'd been carrying slipped from his shoulders. He slid the ring onto her finger and she stared down at it, then laughed softly. This feels insane. Terrifying, he asked, completely. But right. She looked up. Perfect? They didn't fly anywhere that day. They stayed on the jet for hours, drinking lukewarm coffee, talking about kitchen layouts and paint colors and how much flour the average youth group could go through in a week. Later that evening, they returned to the Craftsman house together. Blaire unlocked the door for the first time as its legal owner, and Kai followed her in, carrying a bottle of wine under one arm and a bag of groceries under the other. The furniture had already been delivered. Neutral tones, soft textiles, a fireplace that crackled quietly in the background. As Kai folded a blanket over the back of the couch, he looked at her. Do you regret saying yes? She turned from the kitchen island, where she was placing bowls on two mismatched placemats. Not even a little. He stepped behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. I never expected this, he said against her hair. You and me both. You make me want to be softer. She turned in his arms and kissed his chest. You make me feel safe enough to be bold. They didn't need fireworks or a crowd. There was no dramatic music or spotlight, just the quiet hum of a home being built, one moment at a time. As night fell and the first stars blinked into view beyond the windows, Blaire curled up beside him on the couch, toes tucked under his thigh, her fingers tracing lazy circles on his wrist. I used to think people like you only existed in stories, she murmured. I used to think people like you didn't exist at all. And in that house on a quiet street, with no cameras, no headlines, no curated appearances, just a man and a woman who saw each other fully, they found something neither of them had believed was possible. Forever. Blaire wiped her hands on the apron tied around her waist and stepped back to survey the long central counter now dusted with flour, cocoa powder, and the faint sheen of icing sugar. The Sutton Space's grand opening was in 2 days. The ovens had been installed, the staff trained, the shelves stocked. What remained now were the finishing touches, the things that couldn't be bought. Warmth, intention, and the heart of the place. She heard the front door open and turned just as Kai entered, jacket slung over one shoulder and sleeves rolled up slightly, revealing the faint shimmer of sawdust on his forearms. You've been to the construction site, she asked, lifting a brow. Just came from there, he said, dropping the jacket and coming to stand beside her. The roof on the youth lounge is finished. I climbed it to see the view. Did you fall? Almost. One of the contractors caught me before I reenacted a full drama on the scaffolding. She laughed, then leaned in and kissed the side of his neck. You're a hazard. Only when encouraged. She stepped back and reached for a clipboard. You're on delivery duty. Can you pick up the signage from the print shop and the compost bins from the garden center? Are you asking or assigning? Assigning, obviously. He took the clipboard, scanned it, and nodded. Done. Anything else? Yes, my sister's flight lands tonight. Can you pick her up? Kai blinked. You have a sister, half-sister. We didn't grow up together. She lives in Portland, but she's flying in for the opening. He ran a hand through his hair. You've never mentioned her. I wasn't sure she'd come. We've had a complicated time figuring out who we are to each other. But I want her to see this. He handed her the clipboard again and touched her waist gently. You're allowed to have complicated things. You just don't have to carry them alone anymore. She nodded, eyes softening, then turned away quickly. Okay, enough emotions. Go get the bins. As he left, she exhaled slowly, steadying herself against the counter. She had worked her entire life to build something with her hands to create a space where people could come and feel safe. And now it was real. The opening arrived on a crisp Saturday morning. The neighborhood showed up in full force, kids in sneakers dragging their parents by the hand. Older residents bringing baked goods of their own. Former students from Blaire's workshops now helping man stations with wide grins and flour-dusted cheeks. Kai wore a slate gray button-up with the sleeves rolled neatly, helping direct traffic outside and restock supplies while Blaire floated from station to station, answering questions, offering samples, and laughing with people who had once been strangers. Midway through the day, she caught a glimpse of a woman standing near the herb garden, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her head. Her posture was uncertain, like she wasn't sure she belonged there. Blaire set down her tray and walked over. You made it. Her sister smiled hesitantly. I almost didn't, but you did. I wasn't sure if I'd fit into your world. Blaire glanced around. It's not my world, it's our mother's legacy. You're part of that too. Her sister nodded slowly, then looked around. It's beautiful. I think she would have loved it. Kai appeared then, holding a clipboard in one hand and a half-eaten lemon tart in the other. You're Blaire's sister, she looked surprised. Yes, I'm Kai. The guy who's been following her around like a lovesick intern. Blaire rolled her eyes. Subtle, he grinned at her but then turned more serious. She's built something incredible here, you should be proud. I am, her sister said quietly. More than I can say. Later that evening, long after the crowd had thinned and the sky had turned a deep violet, Blaire sat on the grass behind the building with Kai. They were both barefoot, their shoes discarded beside them, 2 glasses of red wine between them and a blanket wrapped around their shoulders. The lights from the Sutton space glowed behind them, soft and golden. You didn't have to be here for every second, she said. I didn't want to miss any of it. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I don't know what comes next. Yes, you do, he said. You just don't want to say it yet. She tilted her head to look at him. Okay. Then say it for me. You're going to wake up in this house we made, work in that kitchen you built, and fall asleep every night knowing you changed lives that day, and I'm going to be beside you for all of it. She was quiet for a long moment. I used to think love meant compromise. Shrinking yourself, giving up things. I didn't know it could feel like expansion. He wrapped his arm around her. You haven't even seen the best part yet. What's that? We still have decades to go. A few months later, they stood beneath a canopy of magnolia trees in the backyard of their home. The garden was in bloom, the tables set with handmade linens and wildflowers picked that morning. Their wedding was small, just their closest friends, the staff from the Sutton space and their shared family. No media, no headlines, just vows whispered under sunlight and promises made with every piece of who they were. Blaire wore a simple ivory gown with embroidered cuffs, her hair twisted back with sprigs of rosemary. Kai wore a navy suit, no tie, his hands steady as he placed the ring on her finger. You once told me you were careful, he said, voice low. But loving you made me brave, she smiled through happy tears. You once told me you were hiding, loving you made me seen. They kissed to the sound of wind rustling through the trees and the gentle clink of glasses from the tables beyond the archway. After the ceremony, as the sun began to set, Kai pulled her aside and led her through the garden gate. A narrow path opened into a hidden courtyard where a new sign stood beside a door. Blaire blinked. What is this? He stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. The second Sutton space, a cafe, just yours. She turned in his arms, stunned. You already started it, I already finished it. But we just got married. I wanted our marriage to start with a gift. One that builds something. She touched the sign, then turned to him, her heart in her throat. You give me more than I know what to do with. Then just love me back. I already do. And as the lights flickered on inside the new cafe, casting soft shadows across the courtyard, they stood there husband and wife, creators and partners, lovers and best friends ready for everything that came next. Forever had never looked so real.